You and Sabrina spent more time in it than me. I just went back and checked a
Because
few
I went
times. I
and
know you
painted
did.
the shirt.
I know you did. Like what do you use Microsoft Paint or like you don't have Photoshop at work, do you?
No, I just use like whatever's on the computer. Yeah, Paint or whatever they call it.
So I guess switch gears. So you've worn boxing gloves. Do you like those gloves?
They're huge. They just feel so much bigger than what I used. But maybe
Well,
not.
they're
Maybe
they're they're smaller than the Everlast.
remember I only boxed for 6 days or whatever it was.
Yeah, we're gonna talk. We're gonna make fun of you a little bit today about that.
If I just sit here and we don't talk about boxing at all, I just have a glove.
I
Just have a
think
mitt on.
I think it'd be
Mitt on.
great.
Fine 3 seconds.
That's
Hey!
actually pretty funny. So, want to know the other pain about moving to Tennessee is I have spent double what the average person would spend in their starting boxing. Every person has like 2 or 3 pairs of gloves, right? One for bag work, one for sparring, one for mitt work. I don't need 3, but I did want 2. My trainer's like, he's like, never spar with a man with your mitt gloves because they're going to get smashed in. There's less protection for your knuckles in his face.
We just had gloves laying around for those other stuff.
Well, purchase now. So I've bought 2 pairs of Everlast, a pair of those, a second pair of Rivals, and then now a pair of because I'm gonna have stuff in Tennessee and stuff here. And my justification is I'm gonna be running back and forth for a week, so I might have a carry-on or like a briefcase.
Huh?
Once I start lugging my headgear and 2 pairs of gloves and shoes, now I'm paying for
You
bags.
wraps?
I have plenty of wraps.
Yeah.
I haven't bought the hand ones. I don't know how to do them yet.
Oh.
I've tried a few times. In fact, the last few nights I've been.
It becomes like tying your shoes. I wonder if I could still do it.
Well,
Let's do it right here live.
So I bought Everlast. I bought some Cleto
Candy
Reyes.
wrap.
So my point is, I've doubled the cost because when I'm home working out, excuse me, when I'm home working out, did you lock the door by the way?
You said home working out at home?
Yeah, like with the when I'm hitting the
It
bag.
was weird, right?
When I'm working out at home and working the bag, I'm gonna need my stuff there. There's gonna be a boxing gym in Chattanooga somewhere.
When you say remote working, do you say home working?
Yeah,
You do? Really?
I will be.
I mean, is that what you say?
You don't say
Working from home or remote work? You say, I'm home working today?
Yeah,
No, you
working
don't.
from home.
Well, right.
Did I
Why
say
would
it
you-
backwards?
Why would you say home working
dude.
out?
When I'm at home working out, meaning when I'm at Chattanooga and I'm working out of my house,
Okay.
I'll
All
have
right,
a,
all
I'll-
right, all right.
I'll have a heavy bag there.
I didn't mean to get in.
So I'll need gear and all that stuff there, but I'm not going to pay to bring the bag on the airplane to fly it back to Chicago twice a month.
Be that guy. This counts as a checked bag. I can fit it.
So it just makes sense to me to not do
It's
that.
like the people that bring their
Right? So you just go land where you're gonna
snowboards
land.
on the plane. It's like, hey, technically it fits, but like, come on,
I've seen those people on the plane. Nobody really likes those.
huge bags.
And I'm under tighter restrictions because the only planes that go into Chattanooga are the little, like the
Yeah.
3-row ones.
Yeah, that's
And
like
so they're
Albany,
overhead.
too.
They actually measure.
It's got to be spot on. Yeah.
And they allow the carry-on or like a shoulder bag or backpack and then one above.
Yeah, same plane as when we go to Albany,
So you get it. Canada, right? Where you're from.
Canada,
if-
USA.
So if you imagine this and headgear and shoes and a change of clothes, now I'm paying to check a bag. And so my thought was over the next 12 months, it will be cheaper just to buy 2 extra pairs of gloves and an extra pair of shoes instead of all those bag checks every month, twice a month for the next year. Well, you were just telling me about how you're more taking on outside general counsel roles than maybe what you were doing previous. We know you're not doing litigation.
No, I don't litigate. I do pre-litigation. I like to call it that, which is when clients get in disputes and they come to me. Let's say it's related to a contract and simplest thing, a customer doesn't pay, has a dispute or whatever. I will try and step in and resolve it, but really up until the point of where it gets filed, and then our litigators take over from there. And I'm comfortable doing that because I did that for many years. But I don't do that anymore. I'm not going to court anyways.
Yeah. So how has it evolved?
I went from litigating 100% to then over to let's say, call it corporate law, which was zero litigation and mostly doing deals, transactions, buying and selling businesses, helping people buy and sell real estate, commercial real estate, leasing, that sort of thing. And then there's all of this other stuff, which is more, I don't want to say day to day, but it's smaller in scope and duration, which compared to like a business sale, which can take a month or several months. These are your contracts boiled down to, I just got a new contract from a client. They sent me their form. It's 40 pages. What the heck do I do with this thing? It looks like I'm signing my life away. That is very hot. It needs to be addressed quickly because it's usually a lot of business. It's important to the owner or the manager or whoever. But it's all done within usually a few weeks. And so a lot of my time as corporate has been on what I call outside general counsel, because if you can imagine working within a company as, the GC, the general counsel, a lot of companies don't have that. Small businesses who I work with, lawyers are too expensive, right? All staff is expensive and they have to justify the expense. They just don't have usually the amount of legal work for which they can take on a lawyer full time. So most small businesses are outsourcing that, just like they would like an accountant or financial advisor. And they use me for contracts, for employment issues, anything that just kind of comes up that's maybe, I don't want to say less strategic, but just smaller in scope compared to I'm selling my business now, right? Which is a major, major transaction. Still do those. I tell people right now I'm about 50-50. Do deals half the time and general counsel stuff the other half of the time.
So when you're preparing a company for the sale of the business, at what point should they get you involved when they're thinking about selling their business?
I like to say as early as possible, because I'm the one that, it depends on the client, but if I have been working with someone and I know, the ins and outs of their business, or at least the state of their contracts, employees, I know some of the skeletons in the closet, for lack of a better word. I know things that need to get done that are going to directly impact the value of their company. And so we should prepare and get out in front of that now. What I've started to do, it's almost like a health assessment for the business. It's like, let's look at it as if a buyer is going through like due diligence, for example. Here's a number of items that they're going to look at, either before or around they would sign a letter of intent for the sale. You're going to have to open your books, open your office, give them really full access. Let's do that now internally. Let's test it out. See what you have. Let's see what a buyer is going to look at and flag anything that's problematic. Because what happens is you get to the sale, and if you haven't done that before, now you have someone come in, especially if you're selling, let's say private equity, or people that are in the practice of buying and acquiring businesses, really smart. They know what they're looking for. They're going to find all these things. And what's going to happen is they're going to come month, 2 months later into the process. You're gearing up, you're ready to move on. And they're going to say, hey, Phil, because of X, Y, and Z, we can't give you this same price anymore. Something's got to give here. And now you have the decision to make. Do I fight this? Do I take it back to market with these issues? Did I pull out, fix these issues? A lot of times the owners are so deep into the process, they don't want to back out. So they ended up just taking it on the chin, And all of that, most of it, can be prevented by just doing that same process early on. And it doesn't need to be tied on any specific event. They don't have to say like, hey, Tim, I want to sell in a year. Could be just say, hey, Tim, I just want to get on the right path. I want to see what the problems are today.
Well, just makes sense. You're helping the financial strength of the company, as well as you're helping them prepare, right? The worst thing that could happen is you drive some efficiencies with them, right?
That's all it is, and I'm not going to be able to help them increase their revenue or tell them how to sell their products better. Like that, those are other professions, right? But I'll ask the questions that are definitely the ones that are the easy ones that fall into what's legal about contracts and things. But then other things that I just know can cause problems for prospective buyers, such as how much of your revenue, your business is allocated to like one or two customers. And some owners are like, some owners are like, oh yeah, Steve, I've been in business with him 20 years. He's like a big client of mine. He's not going anywhere. And when you're reliant so much on that one customer,
Sure.
that's a problem. And they don't see it that way. They see, they see loyalty, they see certainty. But a buyer comes in and doesn't know Steve, right? And it just says that's a risky element to have so much of your business tied into one thing. So I know enough to ask those questions, and then we can bring in someone else, or they can even internally figure out, it's like, how can we get more diverse?
We're entering a timeline where I think more of these more businesses are going to be selling, right? We have more baby boomers retiring.
Yeah. So the organization that I'm affiliated with, that I follow, to do these studies, I believe the number's like 19 trillion in wealth transfer from that generation to the next, which is more than what was anticipated like 5-10 years ago. A lot of money changing hands. It changes hands within the next 5 years. And unfortunately, some owners are going to have to just lock up their doors and walk away, because if you're that poor in terms of, and I'm not even talking about revenue, but if you're the entire business and you have no formalities, you have no contracts, and you can't transfer anything over to a buyer. You may be selling your assets, you've got some trucks, equipment, fine, but you're not selling a business anymore.
Well, I've had 3 clients retire or sell their businesses very recently, and in every instance, they had to come on as a consultant just in order for the deal to go through.
Yeah, most transactions, small businesses, the owner's got to stick around, even good ones.
What's the standard time frame, I assume?
There is none. There is none. But
so, how does an owner get earlier in the process start to free up their time? Because they obviously want that consulting position to last for as short as, unless they're super passionate, right? And they want to stay involved at some level.
Yeah.
But if they're selling it, they're probably looking to do something else with their life, move on, head into retirement, transfer the company to somebody else.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the process, is also figuring that out. Some people are just going to joke, be like, oh, I'm going to Arizona, I'm going to golf for the rest of my life. I'm like, really? Hold on a second. You've been working 80 hours a week for so many years, and you think you're just going to be able to flip a switch and just golf?
Yeah, it's a lifestyle as much as it is a job.
That's what ends up killing people earlier.
Agreed.
Is the fact that they just lost everything, all their drive. They've got nothing to work for. They had no plan, and they sell, and now they have all this time, and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing with myself. Atrophy almost. Right?
So I guess it's the old saying, they want to work still, but they don't want to have to work. Right. So they still want to have the angle to reduce that consulting job.
Yeah.
So how do they get involved early and start maybe delegating job responsibilities, separating them from the day-to-day action, the day-to-day operations of the business? How do they do that?
Great question. I mean, at first it's an acknowledgement, right? It's, yeah, I understand something's got to change. It usually could start with evaluation. I encourage people, hey, if exiting is in your near future, or even if it's not, and you just want to see what goes into the value of your business, do evaluation, and you'll be able to see those factors. And then it's like, okay, this is much less than I thought it was. Most owners are surprised, when they do evaluation, because they always over anticipate what they would get, what they would sell for. But now you have, okay, here's the report. Here's some things that are worse than I expected. Okay, now that I have a number attached to it, I'm more driven to want to fix it. So now once you get the acknowledgement and the buy-in, of course, there's always time. It's like anything else that we have, where we know we should do it. I'm just going to push it on because I got three other things I need to get done today, and you keep pushing it down. There's always that element of it, right? But it's a matter of who really wants to take that step to improve their business. It's tough to convince people. Like, if you can convince them how to do it, and all right, this makes sense, I understand. Yeah, sure. I need to shore up my agreements with my customers, or figure out a way to formalize some of my relationships here. But once they have the plan and they understand it, to get them to act, that is the $10,000 question.
So how did EPI go yesterday?
EPI, the Exit Planning Institute, without our committee member,
Yeah.
Phil, right there.
I think you're a co-founder, if I'm not mistaken.
For the Chicago chapter, which we started like a year and a half ago. There are 5 of us on the board, the founding board members. Yeah, I was one of them. I had never even heard of it before then. Yeah. So it was great. It was good. You know,
I've missed a few in a row now.
you're not the best committee member in terms of attendance. No. In fact, like when I was putting together our slides and I'm listing, our members, doing intros, and
Did you leave me out?
No, you were there, and I kind of figured, I was like, oh wow, he is a committee person. I forgot for a moment.
So you hooked me up with.
Maybe we should edit this out. This isn't.
We don't have to edit that out. I think it's fair
Cut it
talking
out.
about. In fact, it might be a perfect segue into what's been occupying my time. But who did I partner up with? She has an accounting firm up north.
Marianne.
Marianne. I
Yeah.
like Marianne.
Marianne's great.
So Marianne came at me, like a Spitfire, which is a good thing. Like, hey, we want to get this done. We want to get this done. And I told her that I could.
Yeah.
Just kind of give me a good heads up on meetings, when you want to get together, agenda schedules.
Right.
And my first phone call to her probably took her a month to get back to me.
The life of an accountant, right?
The life of an
Marianne?
accountant.
Right? Yeah.
And so she calls me back and she apologized. And I said, listen, I will never do that to you. And we kind of had a laugh. And I think we even brought Nina in on the phone call. We 3-way called her when I was driving home. And I was going to call her back. And I have probably done the same thing to her that she did to me. It's probably been 30 days or more.
This is back-to-back segments now that aren't great for you. I guess it's all the same, but so what you're saying is you promised someone you wouldn't do it, and then you didn't fulfill.
I don't think it was so much an empty promise. I think she knew that some things were going on, that you were actually partnering up with me.
You've been very busy. I know your mind's been pulled in a lot of directions.
It's not just busy; it's allocation of time, right? Because everything that I'm doing right now is all consuming.
Yeah.
It's a wake up to go to bed, type process. And while I'm doing that, I'm still running this business.
Moving, right?
Moving.
You own your own U-Haul, I've heard.
There's a U-Haul out front. So we're actually, me and Lisa, we're taking a drive down to the new house this weekend just for a couple of days.
Where are we going? Where's the house?
Chattanooga area.
It's
gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's right off the Tennessee River.
It looks awesome.
Fishing will be good for me. We're going through a major remodel.
And you don't even need to figure out where the rods and stuff are, because we know everything's in your car.
No, I took a trip the last time I went down there.
For people that don't know, you have we'll call a full-size sedan.
I do.
Except for the driver's seat and your daughter's car seat.
Agreed.
Everything else is filled with fishing rods, tackle box, whatever. Everything else in your car is consumed by fishing stuff, gear.
I would say
let me finish. And you've been known after a day of work just to go fish before you go home. Is that right?
I do.
Yeah. So if you're ever looking for someone to fish with, Phil's probably your guy.
Yeah, you're guaranteed not to catch anything, but
you're
we'll have a good time.
Almost like a traveling bait and tackle shop too, even plus the rods. It could be a business.
When Lisa sees it, she's going to be upset because I have a lot of gear.
And she also didn't know he was stopping to go fish on his way home.
She did not know that. So there's a couple things happening here.
Jeez.
Yeah, but it's all true.
The Toad Show is bringing it all out today.
Yeah, well, I think outside of that, we should talk about some of my more. I want to come back to that for sure, but I think we should talk about one of my more successful disputes I've had. I mean, me and you recently, I guess in the last year or so, had a pretty strong difference of opinions on something. Do you agree?
This is so vague, and we've had so many discussions with so many things.
Can I clarify? I want to point us in the right direction. So,
please, okay? Yeah.
Because as a trial attorney, I think you've got the ability to maybe set it up to your advantage, and I would rather just lay it out how it really went down.
By all means.
So we're driving to an EPI event.
Was this our first time?
We're driving back. It might have been the first time.
First time we've driven together as well.
I think so.
Right.
I think so.
He also had a chapsticks
breakdown
that day. The first,
Another chapstick.
A
I thought-
meltdown, I
another
should
one,
say.
yeah.
Wow.
See, your audience doesn't even know about the most recent one, for which
was
Phil
near
said
20 minutes ago.
20 minutes applying chapstick. That I don't know. We'll never know the true story of that. But anyways, go
You're
ahead.
avoiding what you know is inevitable here, I think.
No, I'm just leading up.
Well, at one point in time, you had said, Phil, have you ever blown a stop sign? And what was my answer?
That's wrong already. We're talking about red lights specifically, and it matters.
Red light, not stop sign.
No, it wasn't a question even. It wasn't a question. I mentioned blowing red lights or something along that line. You stated, unprompted, it wasn't asked. You said, I have never blown a red light in my life. I'm like, what do you mean you haven't? Right? And so this is where it breaks down.
Nick, have you ever blown a red light?
Absolutely.
You have?
Yeah.
It's not even a question, really,
Yeah.
for most sane people that can appreciate what driving.
Like, not like it's been red for 10
Right.
seconds. You know, it gets yellow, then red,
Well,
and
this
then
is
might
where
cross the line.
This is
you
where
know.
the debate comes in.
Here, I'm glad you went there, Nick. I thought you might help
That
me.
doesn't help your position.
So in our networking group, after our conversation, I posed a question to our networking group, and we had a unanimous vote in my favor, saying that Phil's definition of
one
what
person, I guess, was the only vote. Technically, it was unanimous. The
It was
only
unanimous.
person.
Was it Phil that
It was
voted?
unanimous.
No, it wasn't even.
No, it wasn't
Phil.
me.
One person chimed in. I think they felt bad, and I think they said they were Team Phil. Can't use names. But,
Keith. It was Keith.
but you haven't yet explained the debate. The debate was you explained that running or blowing a red light to you meant what you described later as it was like a fixed red light. And I said, no, I mean, that's insane. I mean, like you're beating a yellow. You're just getting in, but it's technically blowing a red light because it's red while you're in the intersection. That's the rule of the road, right? And you said, that's not what blowing a red light means. That's what the debate was. You missed
Sure.
that whole point.
No, I was getting to the point.
So I said, no, that's not what I meant. That's
so
not
the
what
debate
that means.
is the definition of what is blowing a red light. And
Yeah.
the reason I just asked Nick that is simple. He basically said, I see that it's turning red. I don't care. I'm going to beat it, which is my definition as well. I see the light is about to turn red or has just turned red, and I'm going to gun it because I want to beat the light. I want to get to where I'm going.
Yeah.
And you said that was not the definition.
No, that's
blowing
my
a red light.
definition. That's my stance. You can't even get it straight anymore. You said stop sign earlier.
What happened is you lost. Now you're taking my position on air.
Oh,
We have no
goodness.
documentation of this to.
I think the Zoom call is recorded. And here's what I told.
not recorded,
And here
no.
was my stance. I said I've never blown a red light, which means you've got the intention of blowing a red light. And Tim, you had said, you mean you've never thought you could time out the yellow, mistimed it, and ended up going through the red light.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say. That is my position. You made it sound like that was your stance. Just
No,
now.
my stance is you have to do so with the intent of beating it, not it accidentally you mistimed it. A mistiming of the yellow turning into a red is very different than seeing that it's going to be red and I'm going anyways. To me, that's the definition of blowing a red light.
No.
Well, here's where we stand. It went to one jury trial, and Keith voted in my favor. So right now,
Beep that out. No names here.
I said Keith. I didn't say we could say Keith. I want Keith to see this. He's gonna stand up for me a little bit.
Okay, Keith.
Do you
well,
have a better way to solve this? Do you think?
No, I don't.
It's still, I think, confusing as to what your stance actually is. But
Is
let's
it confusing?
let's get to the best part of this. So Phil, who self-proclaimed winning this debate that I didn't really realize was a real thing, is the only person to win something at trial and then appeal it because he had the bright idea to explain this to both of our wives when we were hanging
This
out
is
one
true.
evening,
This is true.
and it didn't go well.
You don't appeal your own victory.
It didn't.
doesn't
it
make
didn't
sense.
go well for Phil. So he,
I think it was just a conversation piece, to be honest with you, that night. There's something to talk about. Somebody's got to start some conversation. You were too busy eating all the pizza.
I don't get free advertising, but that's some delicious pizza.
Phenomenal pizza.
Yeah. Anyways.
So what else has been going on with
I'm-
me is
Yes.
we bought the house. It's in the outskirts or the suburbs of Chattanooga.
area.
So we're kind of in between both places. I started as a board member or as a representative, right, for EPI.
You were never on the board.
Well, whatever. It was a what'd you call the position?
A committee person.
A committee person.
You should know. You should know the role. You're not showing up. You don't know the role. We're gonna have to rethink this.
I'm in agreement. We
So
really
you
should.
have an excuse, and I'll give you an excuse. You've been very busy. We've covered the house, all the construction you're doing to it before you move in. This is called a forever home, right? This is the ideal state.
Hopefully.
You and your wife have been looking for a while. It's the area that you want. Schools are great.
We like it.
Yeah,
It's
so
perfect. It's been good.
that's good. But that's just part of it.
Well, the other part of it, you've been on the journey with us, which
Yeah.
I thought today was pretty neat having you in the timing and we're about done finalizing a deal, but I'm going to go into business for myself and no longer work for the company I'm with now.
Jeez.
And I love this company.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years plus. Best
Yeah.
leader I've ever had.
Made a name for yourself here, but
So
and I know you've had a part of, from what you told me, your affinity with this company is kind of the moral part of it, the duty that you felt that the company and you shared towards your clients, and whether it be because management changed or climate, costs, whatever, just got the feeling over the past year or so, maybe longer, that started to chip away. Then you start to lose clients. And I feel like you're just you're probably like, I can do more. Maybe it's just time.
it's layered.
Yeah.
It's layered, right? This was not an easy decision. It was a 12, 18-month decision. And I think you're right on. I think I guess I'll address that first. The industry's been volatile. You know that. We've all seen our auto and home insurance prices climb.
Goodness.
It's been out of control. And the last time Art was here, we actually talked about things that I think consumers will be forced to do to mitigate that, because it's no longer with one company. Right. But with that said, different companies do have different price points. And the clients that I've left, at least the ones that have reached out to us, have all done so apologetically.
Mm-hmm.
When you do what I do, your friends definitely become clients, but your clients become friends too. And so there's an obligation to be an advisor, give good advice, and consult them through a lot of this navigating, or help them navigate this changing landscape. And I think that what we need to do for our clients is offer a variety of price points that meet every budget. Fair?
Yeah. I mean, as a client, that sounds exactly what I would want, right? So when or how, what's the form, what's your plan to like let everyone know, and other than this right here and
Yeah.
blasting it out, what's it going to look like? Explain it. How is it different from where you're coming from?
Well, I think we've done things to make it easier for the client and leave on good terms too. I told you leaving on good terms was probably the top priority for me.
Yeah.
And not just with my boss. And I believe there's going to be maybe a tear shed. I could be wrong, but we've grown.
He's a sensitive guy.
We've
You know,
grown
I've
pretty
seen
close
it.
over the years. He's been
Yeah.
a wonderful leader. But you want to leave things whole, in my opinion. And I think the term burn bridges is one that people usually want to protect what's best for them. But I think if I leave on good terms with the company I'm with now, I think it needs to be done so on good terms so that both parties benefit. For instance, where I'm going now, I'm not worried about reaching out to my existing client base. They'll probably see this video, and I'm comfortable with that. But I signed a contract with Country, and I'm going to adhere to it. You know, I've got an on-solicitation, and we're going to adhere to that. That's not to say clients won't find me, and part of me wants them to find me. But I think we've also built a business plan where you can't be focused on, or we have a new business plan and some other partners, other people we've partnered with.
Yeah.
Going to help us be more mentally geared towards finding new clients and growing this business as fast as we can.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you've got to be through the process. And we could talk a little bit. I want to shine a light on on you too, because you made reference to general counsel earlier. And
Yeah, I have been acting really in that capacity with you both and going through this. And that's your success is mine as well, you know, and I do take pride in that. And um, we've gone through, and I mean, we have had two completely different experience negotiating with your potential new partners. I mean, on the aggregator side, and now you've seen it, like you've seen how negotiations can go one way or the other. And I think maybe the one most important thing I've told you, which I think you've really bought into, is don't trust what someone says a contract's going to do. The only thing you can trust is what the contract says.
in our last conversation with Woody, and again, we could hush out that name later or edit it out. But in our last conversation with Woody, you know, we didn't understand some language in their contract, and the contract was a non-compete. And I want to talk about that, maybe a little bit more about that with you in a second.
A lot going on in non-competes.
A lot going on with that, but there's a non-compete, and you still have to understand what you're signing. And Woody told us, don't worry about that. That's only preventing you from becoming your own group or your own aggregator.
Right.
And so now me and you had discussed this a little bit in advance, but I very simply then said to Woody, well, can we redline the contract and make sure that it's specific to what you said? And he did not give us a clear no. He just danced around it and basically said, well, we're part of this bigger group now, and getting it approved through the people that, you know, would need to approve it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then me and you felt that having a contract that vague, it really doesn't matter what Woody told us, you know, in January of 2024, if this lawsuit or if a potential lawsuit were to happen in 10 years down the road.
Yeah, you can't submit into evidence. Well, I talked to
Woody.
Talked to so and so over here. He gave me his word that that's not how the company would interpret it. First of all, you likely wouldn't even be able to get that into evidence. It's something that's usually excluded. And now the person on the other side who doesn't know you, doesn't know him, doesn't care, they want to enforce their contract.
Well, the problem is when you're starting a company like what I'm doing, what we're doing, I should say, there's excitement and there's you're just glad to be moving forward, and it's easy to skip through, I think, some of that paperwork. And what my fear is, and the reason I brought you on, and you know, even though we're friends, I had to bring you on professionally. I needed to make sure that we weren't jumping into something that we didn't fully understand that could cost us money or regret or maybe even ownership of our book in 10, 15, or 20 years.
Yeah.
So our negotiation went pretty well with our new carrier. I'm not going to use their names. It doesn't matter.
Again, I'm not going to use their names again. Yeah.
But what we found is that they were far more flexible and really were aggressive about bringing me and my partner on board. Do you agree with that?
100%. And I tell clients, like in similar situations, the person on the other side who wants you to join, this is the best that they're going to act towards you, believe. I mean, it's just a fair way to say it. They want you to sign. They will say most anything. And if someone on the other side is kind of giving you the runaround when you ask for what's a pretty basic change in the contract, and they basically don't want to stir the pot with their higher ups, well, then once you're signed, what do you think they're going to do? You think that improves? No, it doesn't get any better.
Well, it's too late to sign, whether it's approved or not.
Yeah,
and we want to be careful.
But you're testing people on the other side too. Like in the long term, I wouldn't expect anyone that you're contracting with to be your counterpart for 10, 15 years. You know, people have different lives, things change, they move on. Right? But in the near term, this person's going to be working with you pretty regularly. What are they doing for you to help you get comfortable with these terms? You know, are they even trying? You know, or are they giving you the, hey, it's our form, take it or leave it? Well, that's not good enough for what shouldn't be good enough for a lot of clients. In the case of the non-compete, that was a straight, yeah, I know what the contract says, but it's only meant for this. Well, let's write the contract to what it's meant to be. And if someone just can't do that for you,
it's very tough to partner.
It's very tough, right? right? And so it's all even though I'm not going to say it was a small issue, but it was one very important.
It's a big one. It's a big issue.
As you know from like me, I don't go and rewrite something that I think is grammatically incorrect, right? For this kind of business, it's like I'm not going to rip up someone's form just for the sake of having proper English. As much it might pain me how some people write. Like I will revise what's material, what's important. That was very important, right? We need to change this to make it align with what the actual intent is. And if you're saying no, just kind of trust me, I'll take care of you. Oh, sorry, no. As I told you, you can't trust that, because even if he's around, he clearly doesn't have the power to make that decision. He's already admitted there's another entity above. And then more than likely, he's not going to be around when you actually need it.
It's funny, but not only did I see it as a protection of me and my partner, but I also saw it as a protection of my relationship with this company. I feel like if something is well defined, it's agreed to, it's in black and white, it certainly will make any contract resolution or dispute resolution issues down the road. I just think it nurtures a better relationship, and it's done so with me, obviously, with my contractor, right? You help me negotiate his contract. And what I have found is, well, maybe initially, while having these rules in the sand and things drawn up, it could be awkward asking for those things up front. But I think once they're in stone and once they're agreed upon, I think it just lays the foundation for a healthier partnership. Totally. I don't know if you've seen that, but
it's a lot of the times it's, when I'm negotiating for someone, I have the job of, okay, everyone is we're coming together for this beautiful relationship, the start of this new partnership. We're all feeling great. We want to get the deal done. The commercial terms are exactly what we agreed. And then I come, and it's like, oh no, here come the lawyers. What are they going to do? But if I notice, I ask questions just to kind of start to explain positions. Like what happens if there's an argument, a dispute, if you disagree, like how do you guys fix it? Wow, well, we'll work it out. We'll talk. We'll work it out. We're friendly. It's like, well, you got to think better than that, right? You're different objectives. One wants to get paid. One wants to get a product or service. It's not exactly aligned. How do you think it would play out? Let's put it that way. Your thinking is going to be different than the other side's 100% of the time. 100% of the time. So why not then address it up front, just in case, get it clear so that it's there if you need it. Because most contract disputes that I see, especially when I'm getting them from like new clients, it's like, how do you help me with this contract? It's not that, oh, this is so clear and they're just not doing it right. There's no clarity whatsoever, right? Mm-hmm. There's no answer, or it's vague, or it's like in the case of poorly written, it just doesn't make sense.
And the other thing too, it was also a test run on how we're going to handle these. How are we going to handle those disputes? So the way that we went into this contract negotiation, not only are we laying the groundwork for how we're going to handle these things, we also get a taste for how the other person is going to engage you, and kind of their motivation for an equitable resolution, or just acting. I think one of the terms you helped me formulate in my brain is just acting in good faith. I think it's okay to put that in paperwork, but I think we could both say that and put it in the contract. But during this trial run, I'm actually going to see what you think good faith means, and I think that's set for a very good partnership that I formulated with this company, and they were impressed that I brought an attorney on the call with us, and so I knew what you did well enough, and I've known you long enough now, and I've seen you operate with my clients. I've seen you operate with your clients. I've seen you operate in EPI. I've seen our networking groups. I know how you've helped other people in that group and their clients. I was not willing to make this huge life decision. This is a big life decision, right? This is a big change
Enormous.
For me.
Yeah.
It's a big decision, and we're opening up something that might be pretty significant, as you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having any misstep or looking back and saying, I wish. Because there's no redos. And so the small cost, and it's not an inexpensive cost, but it was much smaller than a mistake would cost me down the road. So you were with me. I made reference to being my consigliere more than being my attorney.
Yeah.
You use general counsel, which is probably a more appropriate term.
I appreciate your
But
term.
but I think that having you along the process, it also allowed our debriefings to be more on point. Because anytime you're trying to relay something that was said in the meeting, you're never going to remember it perfectly. The meetings aren't recorded. And so we could hear things both firsthand from the companies or multiple people that we've met with, and we could debrief accurately. And I think there were times I heard things and things you heard things and things that my other partner, heard things a little bit differently. And so we had to put our heads together and then we would go back with questions.
Yet another reason why get it all agreed in writing, so there's no dispute later. And I don't mean to, going back to the first person who I will not name because we're not using names. I don't mean to pile on because I think he's a really good person. And
Wonderful.
if he was the one that was calling the shots, I would be like,
we're in.
Go for it.
But he's not calling
But
the
he's
shots.
not. But the irony in him saying, don't worry about that contract. That's not the intent. And then his cautionary tale of his own experience, for which came down to something he just really didn't negotiate well and how he got burned. I'm thinking
we negotiated that pretty good, didn't we?
I'm thinking to myself, you really just, he didn't make the connection, right? And at that point, it wasn't important enough to go into. But with a little bit more time in his situation, he's probably not even there in that seat because he's moved on to something else that he wanted to do.
Because he didn't spend the money up front to make sure that what he was entering into is going to be best for him and his family down the road.
Yeah.
Which I think was the other important thing. And I don't know if I elaborated enough about one of the reasons that I'm doing this. But when you work every day and you build a business, you hire your own staff, you rent your own facilities, all the things that are associated with owning a business, I would like to make sure that if something happens to me tomorrow, that I can leave a legacy for my kids and my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa. She yells at me for calling her my wife because she's not technically my wife.
Well, I'm sorry, Lisa, for saying wife earlier because I was abiding by the rule.
Listen, I'm not embarrassed to say it in the slightest. So
no, you should not be embarrassed at all. She's wonderful.
I'm not embarrassed to say my wife. Right? It's been almost 20 years, I think. 18 years maybe.
That's almost 20.
But my point is,
you get so old, like you can't get exact.
I'm getting that old, man.
You just round up or down.
I'm fighting.
People
the youth
give you a
age.
break.
I'm fighting the age, though, aren't I? I'm.
Yeah, you're fighting the fight. You're fighting it.
Yeah, I picked up boxing. You set up the gloves like that. I didn't. Trying to show them off a little bit.
I think
you boxed a little bit. You said so when I started boxing, and I want to come back to this. I think
I'm laughing because
you're gonna enjoy this, Nick.
We all know where this goes.
So I told Tim, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna start boxing, or it came out in a network in our coffee talk meeting, and he
hold on, it didn't just come out. He stopped the entire meeting. There's like 20 people on the call, and when he said I have a big announcement to make, I thought he was going to announce the company thing, and I'm like, no, you can't do this now. Like, this is way too. You're not in there. He goes, I got a big announcement to make. I started boxing. I'm going to start boxing. I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? And everyone had all these questions because it's just this big announcement turns into what's like I'm picking up a hobby. Like, okay, congratulations, I got a new video game. Let's go into that next.
I'm starting to think you should have never given up being a trial attorney because as good as you are at the other things, you are good at positioning situations.
But anyways,
I'm gonna be a little bit more clear, Nick, and I think it's fair that we all understand this.
You know who was very supportive of the boxing? Keith. Again, he's your guy.
He is my guy.
Yeah.
Well, at least he knows what blowing a red light means. Maybe people from New York see it a little differently. I don't know.
Worst drivers, Chicago, New York. New York, I'd have to say the worst that I've experienced, Jersey. New Jersey.
Well, I guess we're not doing any business in Jersey.
I love New Jersey. I love New Jersey. I'm just saying the drivers, though. I don't know why.
Just the people and how they drive?
Just don't understand the rules of the road.
Well, they understand. They just don't care.
They just don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always very cautious.
I think you know what it is. I think
me.
it's what New Yorkers would be driving like if there was more space. Because New Jersey's a little bit more, spread out.
So we're on the podcast, and I've been part of the original group for a long time in Coffee Talk, and you're involved too now. And I always try to do a business, a personal, and then something else that's going on in my life, just because I was literally there from day one, and I feel like a lot of those people have heard my elevator speech 100 times, and I know you can attest to this. I know you like
It
to
doesn't always
tease me.
resonate with everyone, though.
So I always try to give a little something of what's going on in my life, whether I'm hiring, whether or not we're moving office locations, whatever it might be. So I mentioned, hey, you guys know I've been a little bit on this health journey for a year and a half. I'm gonna box, and I started boxing. Fast forward to what I wanted to talk about here, Nick. Tim calls me up right after the Zoom call, and he says, "Why did you tell you were boxing? I used to box." I'm like, "Oh, with lots of respect, because I've learned this is a different game, right? This lots of respect for people that box." And so my next question is, well, how long did you box for? And he was less than 6 months.
I didn't think about it for too long. It was definitely not a full year. But
So
as you know, and go ahead, keep going.
Here's what's
This
funny.
is your time. This
he-
is your
he-
Toad
he made
show.
he made fun of me declaring on this Zoom call, people, hey, I'm trying to get in shape. I'm going to try this boxing thing. Within an hour's time, he called me up, acted very confident. Well, I did box. Oh, well, just for 6 months, a little less than 6 months. And so I found the irony amusing.
But
to
as
say
you
the
know,
least.
so that was 6 months. We'll say 6 months of Monday through Friday, 1 hour of basically personal training, to the expectation that it would lead to some amateur fights. But then I moved, and as I explained, there was no setup that I could
Yeah,
find.
there's no
out here.
amateur fights in Chicago.
There's
I heard.
nothing like that out here, and so I was like, I didn't want to do the class thing and just like, oh, this is great, and it just wasn't. You do it, and now, you do it for the how can I explain it?
It's a challenge.
But it's like not for show at all.
No.
You're getting beat up.
Beat up.
Right?
I've been hit in the face several
Getting
times.
hit in the face,
stomach.
wrist, stomach.
It's not glamorous.
Not
like
glamorous.
you're not scoring touchdowns.
Right.
This
you
is
don't
not
care what you're wearing. You're just
Yes.
you're just trying to improve
and
build that stamina. My goodness, is there?
well, you're only as good as your conditioning. I've learned.
Yeah. So that was Monday through Friday for 6 months. So you got a ways to catch up. Now I believe in you, and I want to see. I think you fighting would be awesome if you got into a fight. I'd be there in front row. I would love that. There you go.
We're not going to live stream it.
The Toad Show
Here's
on the
look
road.
at Tim. You're flat. You're being complimentary now, and I appreciate that. But the truth is the only reason I tease you is because when you defend yourself, I enjoy it. I like watching you feel the need to defend your position.
I'm just saying you got a lot to go before you can dig the 6
Tim,
months.
I've got a lot to go before anything. I'm pretty bad. I'm pretty slow.
It humbles you, right?
It's very humbling when you think you're an athlete.
You thought you're
I used to be an athlete. Well, when you think you've got that in your history,
now we got
right?
something to work with.
Yeah, high school and college sports. When you think you've had that, you think you might pick it up like riding a bike. And not only is it not like riding a bike, but it's different than any other sport, including wrestling. I wrestled in college too. It's very different.
On your
Very different.
some people like on LinkedIn and like the tagline, you see like I'm an accountant, I'm a dad, I'm a hiker.
Mhm.
Are you like I'm a country agent, I'm an athlete, fisherman, like because I didn't know the athlete part was part of. This is the first time.
Yeah,
I
meant I had participated in a pretty good level of athletics as a kid. Right. I mean,
I
it was
know,
Division
just
III
teasing,
football
yeah.
and wrestling, but
yeah,
it's still a pretty high level of competition.
and the commitments.
Some of
there,
those
yeah.
division. We've wrestled some division. University of Indiana, I believe, was at a couple tournaments, but it's a false envisionment that we have of ourselves that maybe we're still that kid that competed at that level
Let's-
25, 26 years
It's
ago, and
good
I'm
to
aging
have.
myself. But I figured, hey, there's got to be some ounce of
40
athleticism
years
here.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, some athleticism, and let me tell you, it's gone.
It's not gone. It
It's-
just needs to be awoken.
It's gone.
No,
gone,
you've
my
never
friend.
done that before. It's completely different.
No,
than
I'm
anything
it's
you've ever
coming
done.
along. Chris has been great. Chris, my trainer, is actually the Masters Division Muay Thai, I think, nationwide champion right now, and they don't wear the protective gear and where he fights. And he's a unique guy. And I met Chris and I want to get Chris in here too because he owns a business. So one, he's an electrician. He's a low voltage guy, so he runs all the internet stuff, through the walls here. He did it at my old office, but he also runs a fishing charter. So when I started fishing,
He just saw you out in the water like at 5:30 on a random Wednesday.
So when I first started fishing, I didn't really know. So my dad took us fishing as kids.
Yeah.
My uncles and my cousins, and it was just something that we did. We didn't do it a lot because sports took over. It'd be youth baseball. We didn't do the travel stuff as a kid, but youth baseball, youth football, the basketball camps in the summer. So fishing went to the wayside. My dad passed in 2008. And I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 years ago, I'm like, I'm going to get back to what me and my dad liked doing because he would still like doing it. So, I bought a fishing pole, didn't know what I was doing. And then it slowly became, I was maybe obsessive over it because it was fun and you get that feedback. And there is something special about fishing. So I'm like, I want somebody teach me. So I just Googled fishing charter, Northern Illinois, and Chris Torresano came up and T-Bone Fishing. And within a week, I probably had an appointment. I brought a friend out with me, went walleye fishing, got a couple funny stories that we can't tell here. But me and Chris stayed in touch. I did a couple more charters. Lisa started booking them on my birthdays. I'd go meet with them.
Sweet.
I started working, doing some side work for me. And I told him, I'm like, hey, man, I've always wanted to do this. I'm getting in shape. I'm lifting. He's like, I'll train you. And I'm like, can you train me? I'm like, this is boxing, not fishing, Chris, right? And he's like, oh, no, I fight. Come on by. And so I go by. It's an hour drive, one way. I do that twice a week. And I'm like, man, this guy's a real deal, right? Chris is tough, man. He's popped me a few times. But you could tell when somebody is really skilled at what they do. And it's a skill. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had said to him, when are you going to fight again? He's like, I can't fight till August or September, I think he said. And I said, how come? He's like, I got to fight this guy. They're having this international competition. I got to fight that. Whoever wins that. I'm like, what, they're treating you like the champ? He's like, I am the champ. And it resonated with me. I'm getting pretty good training, So in fact, this morning he sent me an Instagram clip of, how to use my back foot as a trigger for my jab. So he's an all-in guy. He's obsessive like me.
Yeah.
I'm obsessive over it.
Really?
Both fishing and the fighting. In fact, you asked me last time, what are we going to name this show or this podcast, whatever it is? And I said, probably Tight Lines. It just made sense because we're obviously sharing
a logo, everything.
Expert knowledge. And then I found out that Tight Lines is taken. And with this boxing thing, I'm like, I think I'm going to call this thing In the Pocket. Do you remember what being in the pocket is?
No.
So I guess there's this zone in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And it's called the pocket. And at the edge of that pocket is the power point or the full extension of your competitor. So you want to be in the pocket.
You checked that this one is also available.
I haven't checked yet. I'm going to let my attorney figure that out. We'll have you try to figure it out.
Alternative.
But I think what's most important to me about today, if there's a message, is, and I said it before, but your friends become clients and your clients become friends. And what happens is over the course of time, obviously their lives change and you have to change with them. And so in that process, you become a little bit more than a policy peddler or a guy that sold them an insurance policy or a life insurance policy, I should say. You become more of an advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing I've always done well is I've always tried to coordinate their team of experts. Most people have an accountant. Most people have an attorney at some level. Most people have some form of financial advisor or an insurance agent. And I think what happens to most consumers is those professionals have never been introduced to each other, let alone collaborate in helping the client get to wherever they need to be. And so what I've always taken pride in is understanding my clients' needs, taking the time to know them, and not just peddle them a policy.
Mm-hmm.
And what has happened, you talked about losing clients earlier. No one is proud to ever admit that they lost clients, but I have. We grew last year, and a lot of insurance companies and agents didn't, so I had a positive year in growth. But when a client calls you up and says, Phil, I have to leave. And then they leave and they're gone for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, and they still call you. What should I do in this situation? My advisor is telling me this. Seth called me the other day about the umbrella policy that he has. And the problem being is the obstacle is the price point. Now, I think I'm worth a certain price point. But remember, I'm leaving what we would call a captive agency where I'm offering one company's products and services, and now I could broker 50 to 60 to 70. And when you partner with an insurance company, there's usually three things you could have, right? You could have great pricing, you have great products, right? Great contracts, and you could have great claim service. Now, you could have none of those three in some situations. No one's proud to say that's what they offer, but companies do. But you can never have all three. And right now, there's so much pressure, I think, in the average American consumer's life, right? Utility bills are climbing. We've talked about these things before in my previous shows. You see insurance premiums going out of control. And so the client may not want to lose his or her advisor because they still want that advice. And I don't think I should be tied to one price point any longer.
Well, now the obvious question, right? Which of the three are you going to give them now?
Well, what's nice now is that they have the leverage to choose. So when you're working with one company, you're confined to what that company believes is ideal for the marketplace or who their core client is. And I think my core client should not be as, so harshly defined with such rigid borders. I think all clients deserve and are entitled to solid advice. And I'm sorry.
No, it just made me think of, I think I know the answer. I hope I know the answer.
Okay. Are we at a power deck? Oh, I just heard you hitting buttons over there.
You got really distracted.
He is kind of distracted. But go, what was your question? I'm sorry.
By a little squeak. I think the most important element that your clients, price is very important to you, except for price. Why do I work with Phil? As you know, like for me, that wasn't the reason to switch to you, right? I think what's important is what you provide as an advisor, as a friend, as the advice that you give. You're the person that people call when they have a question, right? About usually about the products that you're offering, but sometimes more. Same thing with me. Sometimes it's not always legal, but you've earned the trust for people just to pick up and call. When you're switching over to this different model from captive now to non-captive aggregator, whatever you want to call it, and someone you transfer, you get a policy for someone, are they still calling you? Are you still their guy if something comes up?
It's a good question. I suppose some might argue that since I don't represent the direct insurance company, that it might be best to call the actual carrier. Although I've built systems, and I think one of the reasons that my success is, or our success, I should say, I think our path to success is having systems in place. Is probably a better way to say it. And I think that we've built systems here that have created and sustained a great customer experience. And I intend on bringing those same systems where I'm at. So every client's going to ask us two questions. They're going to ask us, how much is this thing? And am I okay? And that's usually after something really bad happened. Mm-hmm. And we want to be the person that they call. We don't want them to call the direct carrier in those instances. So we want to be their point of contact. So going back to systems, we have layers of employees, and different employees have different responsibilities to service the client. What I have found that's best to have defined roles internally, so that when the client has specific questions, that we've got the right person at the right time that can give the right advice in a timely fashion. Kind of a lot of mumbo jumbo with, we want our clients calling us. We've got the systems built in to do so. But I think more importantly, what's even better for the client experience is not just the fact that they're comfortable calling us, but that there's systems in place to make sure that we're changing with the client when they forget to call us. So when we onboard a client, there's things that have to happen up front, right? You've got to make sure whatever's done, signatures are taken, payments are made. Right. We meet with our clients after 30 days. The account managers will meet with a client. So we have these processes. So at day 30, right, we review with the client, make sure payments run through, make sure paperwork is done, make sure underwriting doesn't need more information. It prevents a bad experience in case something was missed. We talked to clients at month 6 and the client went at the clients at a 1-year period. But on top of the constant contact in that first year period, we try to meet with our clients annually, because as the client's needs are changing, sometimes the insurance policies need to change as well too. There have been some changes with the Department of Insurance. Clients need to be made aware of. And so as those things happen, we need to be Johnny on the spot and make sure that we're there, not just to answer questions, but to relay important information, because clients don't always know what questions to ask. Clients don't always understand how their life changes or their situation changes, what that might need, what that might dictate they need from a policy change. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, they know what happens in their life. Then however that translates into what you do, no, you can't, and you can't expect them to. Which is part of. It's a hard thing for professionals to get really good at. It comes down to listening. Listening's tough no matter what you're doing, right? Talking to anyone, learning about someone, listening's tough. You always want to get in and talk or tell them exactly what you're feeling. But you have to, as a professional, as someone, to recognize what's going on in their lives and be like, oh, wow, this thing that I did for you 6 months ago, I don't know if it applies anymore. In your case, like my case, that may mean you're not protected as you should be. Because clients you cannot expect a client to tell you what kind of product or service they need. Some are really smart and can get there. They know, I have an idea. But your value as a really good professional is to take just what's going on in their lives or their goals and translate that into a policy, a contract.
Well, I think that comes down to the systems that I told you that we try to deploy earlier, right? There's a series of amateurs ad lib. It's kind of the saying in my industry, which is why we have a series of regimented questions that we ask our clients, because sometimes they don't know what they need, and sometimes they don't know what they don't need. Right? A lot of the times, these meetings that we have with our clients or the annual reviews sometimes means shaving down a policy or finding cost mitigation strategies or finding something that they don't need anymore.
Yeah.
Because freeing up cash for our clients is as important as making sure that they're well protected.
Exactly.
Because cash flow is a common theme today, not just with business owners, as you know,
Yeah.
but also in households.
A lot of clients who are incorporated in Delaware because that's what everyone's doing, right? You get incorporated in Delaware, or you're over in Wyoming for some. Well, why are you incorporated over here? It's like, well, everyone's out. Delaware, everyone knows Delaware's got the best courts and laws for this thing. It's like, they're very good, but a lot of other states, most states have caught up now. The codes are somewhat uniform. But because you're in Delaware and, let's say, doing business in Illinois, you're paying twice as much each year to maintain your company. It may not be a lot of money at the end of the day, but it's just, why are you throwing that money away? It's because they saw someone else doing it, right? And so it's one of those things you have to say. It's like, this isn't. And when I tell clients this, and whether they not want to address that or not, I think it's the appreciation of, hey, this is not a lot of money that you're spending relative to your business, but you're adding at least some administrative burden and time for you to maintain it, because you have to maintain it. You can't just let it go. You can get problems elsewhere. It's like, we're just letting you know, if you want to save a little bit of money, get rid of that. You don't need it.
Business, we overlook having general counsel by our sides. When we think of we need an attorney, it's usually a reactive or a reaction. This is happening. I'm getting sued. Whatever the case might be, I better call an attorney. And then you start calling for referrals, in which case you end up on Google anyways, looking for whoever's closed and whoever probably has the right price point. Right? It's the opposite of how it should work. Much like wondering, I want to come back to you, but it's like when I ask people, do you know what your disability benefits are through work? And they say, well, no. And I said, well, when would you rather know? Go find out today. Would you rather find out now or when you need it?
When you get hurt, right?
Right. And I think the same can be said in your industry too. We shouldn't only call you when there's a problem. We should probably call you to prevent problems.
Yeah.
Is that
in the distinction there that you made? It's not the client's problem. It's the legal profession. We're just not good at being proactive and having those relationships, those regular checkups like you have in your systems. We wait. Hey, they know what we do. They'll come to us when they have an issue.
To be fair, though, we bill differently.
Yes,
So
we do.
and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the industry bills differently. So when somebody purchases a policy from me, they're not just buying a product, they've hired me. So now they've hired me as their advisor.
Hmm.
So when the policy renews, I pay somebody to look at the policy. They're making sure that there's no things to mitigate costs. As everything in line before we present this renewal price to the client.
Yeah.
But that's part of our products and services for purchasing the policy. But for you, every time somebody calls you or they reach out, I think people are fearful of fee.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's a different perspective. And so that might be the thing that, yeah, they might be trying to protect that $200 or $300 fee a week or whatever the cost might be. But what is it worth at the end of the day when something bad happens? So I don't know. Can your clients call you and chat things through with you? I don't know how that really works.
What would you say?
Well, they obviously wouldn't reach out to you, but they'd call the office.
No, I'm saying your experience with me and questions and stuff and phone calls, and I guess it's a little different.
Well, I think you bill fairly.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a good judge of that because we are friends too.
Fair.
And so I certainly don't think I take advantage of anything because I think sometimes for most of us, our work is a big part of who we are as people. It work extends into the household, our households extend into work. And so when you're friends with somebody, you're going out to a kid's birthday party or you're going out for pizza and your friends, who you are and what's going on in your life is naturally going to be conversation. So when I call you to talk about one thing and something else comes up, I guess I'm justifying getting free advice right now, am I not? A little bit.
No.
But I think,
But
but I would say,
become friends with the lawyer.
no,
That's
that's not the
it.
same because ours
That's
works. I hired a friend already, which some people are afraid to do that. I've had many people tell me, Phil, I don't want to do business with friends. And I respect that position. It's fair.
Totally. Same thing with family.
But I've also learned, though, that when shit hits the fan, who do I want in my corner? You know, and it was you. Sorry to say so, but I'm not sorry to say it, but
I'm sorry. to say.
yeah, I probably am a little bit sorry to say it as well. But I just think it's important to have the right person in your corner.
Well, there's an element of trust, and to answer your question, no. I mean,
And who's going to go all in for you?
yeah.
But what I found about you is because I've referred you clients, I'm not getting better treatment than anybody else. You go all in for everybody, which makes it very easy to refer you.
Well,
It really
I
does.
mean, you have the experience, and likewise, like when you see how the sausage is made,
Yeah.
it makes the referral so much easier. That's why when I talk to potential referral sources, and you get the high level stuff, who you're looking for, what's their client profile, if they're open to it, how are you charging, but like, what's your process? Like, if I and admittedly, I will be testing for like if I send someone a client for the first time, how fast are you responding? Because respond as soon as I see that email or phone call or whatever. Because again, first impression, I want to try and help someone out. I want to help the client, and I want to help the person who is sending it to me. It's an extension of their own business, right? So that's a test, and I want to see how fast you are, how good you are. I'm going to get feedback from my client to see did you stick to the appointment? Did you give them the time? Are you trying to rush them? But then, like, when does it not make sense to you? I also want to know that, hey, am I giving you the right people, right? I don't know if you noticed this, but when I like make an introduction to a referral, to you or, well, obviously to you, like, I'm not just saying, hey, Phil, meet John, John, meet Phil. Good luck, guys. Like I'm saying, here's what you do. Here's why I think you're a good fit. You might throw a joke in there at the end to kind of ease things and make a real attempt at connecting and why I think it's a good connection. I think that goes a long way too for people who are sending and receiving me potential clients, their clients.
Great.
Right? You put in some time. So all of this stuff is like, I'm not billing for any of this, right? But
No, I
it's
know, and I didn't mean to. What you're saying is super important, but what I want to portray to the audience is, or to anybody listening, back in the day, there was a regiment where you call for a minute and you get billed for 20 or whatever the formula was. And you told me the other day that you're billing in much smaller segments which again, you billing the way you bill, which is maybe the old way was archaic, but the way you've handled me and why I think you handle everybody makes it more affordable, which is for the consumer. it encourages me to call you because I'll call you and I'll say, Tim, business. You notice I do
Yeah.
that. I've got a business question. I think it encourages me to call you. And now that I know that the pricing model is fair, if that makes sense, and maybe even in my benefit in some cases, now it puts me in a position to have you in my corner for these big decisions. So I don't have latency in my contracts, if that's the right terminology.
You love latency.
Love that
Latency
word.
is your top.
Well, when I went through
Dogmatic
when I
is the new
first met
one.
you through Allison's group, I looked through people's profiles to see what areas of law maybe you're an expertise in, and contract latency resonated with me because I've been in bad contracts before, and I've had you get me out of 3 bad or help me avoid 3 bad contracts, starting with my lease.
Yeah.
Secondly, with my general contractor who is taking a huge amounts of our money and earning it well. He was doing a great job.
It should.
And then thirdly, with this business I formulated and the cost that I've spent relative to what you've put me in as from a competitive position, you just put me in a much better spot. And I feel like you've also encouraged that with the fair billing model.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that maybe?
Sure. I mean, that's a compliment. So thank you. And it works for you. And obviously I think I'm fair for you. I don't, buffer time. It's just, I want to provide value and I want to feel like my clients are getting great service and at a fair price. I'm not the cheapest person around. I don't think that's a very good way to promote yourself as being
Agreed.
the cheapest, right? I'm worth more. I know more than a lot of people. I have a lot of different experience that makes me do what I do now a lot better than other people. At the same time, if I think I'm not really interviewing a client and I'm trying to understand what they want and who they are in like 30 minutes or less. It's difficult, right? Because I'm trusting you that usually I'm giving you a service and I'm relying on you to pay later, sometimes retainers, but usually, especially if it's from someone I know as a referral source and it's their client, they're like, no, I mean, let's get going. Here are my rates. Here's the billing. The billing comes after they get the service. Sometimes they get all their work from me before I send them a single bill. So there's some trust there. I'm trying to figure them out.
Speaking of which, I think I have a bill to pay with you.
You keep saying that. I've never keep bringing this up, but yeah. But anyways, my point being, if I find that it's a good fit, I will introduce alternative arrangements, whether it's, this is part of the evolution of going more to the general counsel as a more of a long-term relationship as opposed to just a fixed project in time, like a sale. My ideal client is someone that I help. It's really you guys, right? Structuring you, getting there from the beginning, growing with you as you expand, handling that, working with you, and then exiting, right? That's the ideal. Sure, this event right here at the end is huge, but it's gratifying not just for you. I mean, ideally you're going to have a ton of money coming away. But for me, it's like, I helped that, supported that all the way through. They're getting this deal because of what we were doing way back when. Even if they don't realize it, I can realize it. So my evolution, my practice is now, for some businesses, maybe the hourly rate just doesn't work. It's antiquated. It's kind of forced down because everyone's doing it. Maybe the subscription, the monthly charge for like a set number of hours, no matter what it is, 1 or 20, the price is the same. It. And I like the fact that it's a price certainty, right? This is what you're going to pay regardless. Put some parameters around it, right? I don't want people to abuse it, but it should be an option for small businesses instead of just being hit with this hourly rate,
It's fair.
So, but the thing is, it's like, when does it become worthwhile for a business? I mean, every business is it's not going to be like, it's going to be $2,000 a month for everyone. That wouldn't work, right? Let's see what your business is, what your needs are. Here's the number. Does that work for you? Yeah. All right, here's how much time is allocated to that number, with the expectation if it goes a little bit over, a little bit under, the rate, it's the same, right? So it's risky and it's unusual in what I do, but I feel like to be, like you said, the fear of even calling a lawyer, like I don't want that, because what's going to happen is when I get these referrals from people that are farther in the process and maybe they have a dispute. And I'm saying, man, for like an hour of my time,
A year, 2 years ago.
I could be saving you so much money. Like this is, I can spot this immediately. You don't even need to tell me what the issue is. I can see it just in the file that you sent me. So
And it's also having an industry. I think it's we all need leadership in our life. I think we all want leadership at different levels. And I think having somebody lead you through, right, the legal landscape could save you so much pain and financial damages later. In fact, we talked about one of the things I kind of took us on this path on purpose. We talked about what happens when you end up in that litigation with that big company. So if me and Woody hadn't come to terms and said, hey, we're not going to
beep.
Look, we're not going to redline this. We're not going to clarify this
Yeah.
language at all.
Yeah.
Right. Well, these big companies know that they could outlive me too. Right. My pocketbook is only so deep.
It's a strategy.
And if you're going up against a big company or a big competitor, I guess not a big competitor, but a big company, they know they could outlive you just in legal costs.
Yeah, because you've also not negotiated the dispute process. And if they're out of state, you could commit to litigation in California, courts you don't know, attorneys you don't know. You're going to travel. I mean, those costs. When people come to me and say, hey, I have a contract dispute, could go to litigation, how much am I looking at? $50,000. If that doesn't start, I'm probably $100,000. Like we're talking real money for a lot of
In which
small
case,
businesses.
even if we didn't clear that up, and if they
50 is
wanted
really
to, I would have
yeah.
never been able to compete in the industry again.
I shouldn't even have said 50. That would be a
A
joke.
small number.
That'd be resolving it early. To go to trial, it's six figures.
Sure.
Easy. I don't care how small you are.
Which, and again, I'm just trying
That's
to
just what it
I'm
is.
just trying to qualify how small that fee would be to get you involved early, like I did, so that doesn't happen and you don't lose your business.
So it's and people can understand that, right? But there's a lot of products and services. You have the same where it's like, if we just did this, like I told you, I'm going to help you anyways because you need the help. But man, that's just a really missed opportunity and an easy thing we could have handled back then. So what I'm trying to prevent, and this is why I like your model, which you pointed out, Nick, is that I want people to feel like they can contact me if they need help when they need it, not to be like, yeah, not to be like, he's gonna bill me for this. I don't want another bill. I'll just figure it out. That's what happens. Then they call me when it's too late, and I have to have that conversation.
If you're ready to tell somebody that it's too late and there's nothing I can do for you.
Yeah,
It's a tough phone call.
you can decide whether to review a contract or negotiate back then. It's completely in your control. You get sued, you're forced now into the situation. And by the way, it's not only depends on your counterparty, who's obviously mad, but their lawyer, depending on how they like to negotiate, if at all, could drag it out even longer. I mean, I don't want to get too far into litigation. I left litigation. It's necessary to resolve. But it's a last resort. It should be treated like a last resort. It's very expensive and time consuming, and a lot of it could be avoided by just getting certain terms. You're talking about contract disputes, right? So, yeah. So
And the worst part about it is when you're going through these, you're not focused on your business, which is why you started this whole thing anyway, is to run and grow a business. So not only is it a financial drain, but it's a deterrent from what you're trying to accomplish with your life. We talked about how we identify through work, right? You said you don't want to retire and do nothing, right? It's
Yeah.
part of who we are. Well, now in the middle of what you're doing, right, of who you are for a living, now you're fighting for it. It
All
seems
the time,
to
yeah.
be a huge distraction, to say the least.
The
It
emotions.
just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because as soon as someone files a claim against you, I mean, it's up to them or the court. It's not up to you. It's up to them or the court to say when it's over.
Speaking of that, what did you mean when we were doing this lease negotiation? I didn't mean to make you look at the ceilings. Right, with this lease negotiation, you use a terminology that I think most people aren't aware of, but they're quick to make the mistake, and it's operating outside the four corners of the contract.
Yeah.
What did you mean? Because I made what I thought was a very clever agreement with the property manager, and you said, don't do that, put it inside the four corners. What did you mean by that?
It comes down to the non-compete with the person that we don't name unless we're bleeping.
No. When we're doing this building,
No,
I
I'm
want-
saying
but-
it's the same point, right?
Oh, okay.
If it's agreed, put it in the contract. Otherwise, don't count on it. You can't because
So you don't want to reference an email agreement that
No,
you had or a text
doesn't exist.
message.
It doesn't exist. It
So
doesn't.
you can never say, "Hey, we text." So if one of somebody you're working with sends you a text and you're thinking, "Cool, I got it in writing," that's not necessarily in writing.
Totally not. So I mean, it depends on your contract in that case, but most likely not. And like you get to the bottom of the contract and it's the miscellaneous terms and no one reads them because they're boring and they're
Yeah.
boilerplate. There's this one that we refer to as an integration clause, which means nothing outside of this document matters. This is our entire.
How many contracts have that?
A
All
lot.
the-
A lot. Most of them do.
To protect things that guys like Woody might tell us off the
Yeah.
record.
Yeah. and Whether or not.
The company's protecting itself, right?
Yeah, it's clarifying that those emails, those texts, those convos, they mean nothing. People don't realize that's what it means, but that's what it means. So when you come in court, it's like, oh no, this guy texted me and said that, no, that's not what that means. It means this when it's clearly not that. Because what a judge is going to do, they have to look at the contract. And unless it's ambiguous, like if it's clear, it says your non-compete covers you no matter what, not just in this instance, that's the end. You can't even show the text. You don't even get that.
If I own a business and I'm having my client sign contracts,
Yeah.
and it's my contract, is it still worth having you look at my contract to make sure that I'm protected? Because we're looking at the consumers or kind of the buyer side most of this conversation.
Yeah.
If I already have an existing contract and I've got clients and I'm having them sign it, is it still worth me having you review that?
It depends on what happens. So like when I draft contracts for people to use as forms, I try in most circumstances, I'm successful at this, create it so that they don't need to come back to me each time. And so what I do is I do usually 2 segments. Here's the fixed stuff, usually most of the legal stuff that shouldn't really change unless they negotiate, which they should, right? Like we do. But this stuff you don't need to worry about. If they don't revise it, you don't need me. And then you get the commercial terms, right? Pricing, maybe the term, the dates, the people, your scope of work, I tell people that's your canvas. Go to town on that because I've written language up here that it's not going to usurp it. So that way, when clients who want to spend the time with me and get a nice form that they can use continuously, they don't have to keep coming back to me, because that's not very efficient. Now, if a client comes and they start to redline all that other stuff, it's probably worth it having me take a look because that can be very impactful and it's not consistent with your other agreements. So,
Well, I think most people don't know this, but you just proved my point that you got to put on a call. You have to have an expert by your side. And if you try to go into these matters or any negotiation or any contract signing without understanding the document, you're probably in a worse position than the person that you're signing it with, if that makes sense. Probably.
yeah, you're not doing anyone a favor if you're not getting your agreement in writing. You're just not, because inevitably things go wrong and there's no clarity. No people in that position now, you're at odds. You think you're going to come to agreement on how to handle the disagreement? No chance, right? So
Yeah.
get it in, figure it out, spend the time up front before you sign, and then at least you have a process to follow. Same thing with setting up companies, right? The operating agreement, the buy, sell. Again,
All the things we're working on.
all the things we're working
All
on.
the things we're doing.
I love you guys, right? But I have to be the one that says, what if something happens that's unforeseen?
We've done some creative things too. Me and my partner have had pretty good input. We've had pretty good input, right? I think our solution of the buy-sell agreement was pretty cool. I'm going to take ownership on that one. Buy-sell agreements are making sure that, but you understand what it is. Well, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I can't have an insurance policy on myself. And I think the idea that we had with the cash values was a good solution of that for an uninsurable partner.
Yeah.
It's not the only solution we had, unless you had another one in that instance when the partner was uninsurable. But
no, that was great. It's a great idea.
you have to have some heads together in the room.
Somewhat?
You have to have all the heads together thinking, or all the heads in the same room thinking as one, which is why we liked having you on the meetings. We liked having my partner in the meetings. It was really a good process, man. And I think we're headed into doing some good things. I think I'll be in a little better position too. I will no longer have to give advice to clients I'm no longer collecting premiums for,
Yeah.
which I want to be clear to my client. Anybody hearing that, I don't mind. In fact, it's an amazing compliment that
Biggest compliment.
they've been forced to do business elsewhere because of financial constraints.
Yeah.
Yet I'm still the person that they call to for all questions, advice, coaching. It's a high
And
compliment.
you answer.
But of course I do. They're my
Yeah.
friends. That's right. I started by saying your friends become your clients become your friends. And what's very interesting about business friendships, and I don't know if I'm going to verbalize this the right way. It's very easy to do buddy with your friend from high school that you've known forever. But it usually takes a very similar person, somebody who works hard, somebody who has a mutual respect for each other to become friends through doing business together. And so I think that those are the types of people that you really want to make sure that you're there for, because they need you as their consultant too, because they've skipped everybody else in their lives. They've had 1,000 of me before me. They've had, 1,000 advisors, 1,000 insurance agents, but yet they still trust me. And so I think it's incumbent upon me to find a way to continue to be that person for them as long as I'm qualified with their questions. But I think it's also incumbent upon me to find a way to make sure that I can be paid, compensated for it.
As you should be.
And being a captive person, regardless of the company, this is not an anti-company thing. We clarified that in the beginning. But it doesn't mean that their price points meet all my clients. And it certainly doesn't mean that my clients don't all still need me. And so I think this puts me in a position to maintain those relationships and maybe grow new ones. But I think the same could be said for you. We've said it 100 times. I think you do a great job. You help me out. And I appreciate you. Is there anything else we should talk about today? We talked a little bit about EPI, didn't we?
No, I think it's good to end on your next venture. You're going to look back at this, and even like a year from now, it's going to be so totally different. I think we all believe it's going to be great, but this is exciting.
It's been a year, man.
I think it's looking really good.
Yeah.
We're all happy for you that know you, your friends and your clients will be friends, and people that will probably seek you out once you make this jump.
Yeah.
And it's going to be awesome.
And the new venture, we could be 50 states now. So my clients that have properties in Florida or California, you no longer have to say, no, I'm sorry. The scope of what we can do is much greater. I've had friends that are on the boards at pretty big hotels across the Midwest. And that was out of the scope of the company I was with. And that's okay. But that doesn't mean I should not make revenue on it because I can't find a company where it does fit their risk or it does fit their, what type of risk they want to get involved with. So I think it's going to be best for everybody. But we'll see. It's been quite a year between the fighting, the move, the house shopping. I'm going to be living in 2 cities for quite a while. The last thing we should talk about with my new venture, if you don't mind.
Schedule?
The schedule.
Yeah.
The company is going to be headquartered in Chicago still, or Illinois. We'll probably have branches as we grow, and we're going to grow smart, right? We're not going to try to go too big too fast. We're going to move as it makes sense. But I will be really living in 2 states, which is where I started to go earlier before we kind of really kicked off the call. I've got 2 sets of clothing, right? I've got my business suits at 2 locations now. I'll have fishing gear at both locations. I have boxing gear at both locations because as I move back and forth, we want life to be pretty seamless, if that makes sense. So,
but like Lisa, just to squash any concerns, he's got a single family, single wife,
single family,
not like that double life you hear about.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. We think that where we're going is going to have a pretty nice, really good school system. And I'll probably even get back into coaching again. I coached football for 10 years.
Well, the first time I saw you, you had a hat and shirt on. I'm like, who's this jabroni on here with all this?
Yeah. I coached high school football for 10 years at Downers Grove South High School.
Yeah.
I retired a couple of years ago, knowing that we wanted to move to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And the community we're in has got it's really a quaint little community. The high school field is tucked away at the top of a hill. It's just a great little place. I can't make the commitment while I'm living in 2 states. That certainly wouldn't be fair to the kids.
Yeah.
Certainly wouldn't be fair to have coached there for 1 week of summer camp and not the next, and some games and others not.
No.
But I think once things get settled, and we talked about delegating. making sure the business can run without you. As I continue to train and make sure this company is super efficient, maybe I could manage it from a different state, but I'm definitely going to be here local. And I don't think I've had too many meetings that weren't done via Microsoft Teams anyways lately. So I think all will be good. A lot of change. It's been fun. I appreciate your help has been, your help though. You know what you've done for us. And so we appreciate it, but it's been fun. We're going to look back on this in 4 or 5 years, and this will have been a very stressful time, a time where I'm failing Marianne and my obligations at EPI, a time where you're probably at the office, from 7 to 7. Tonight when we leave here, actually Tiffany's going to be here in a little bit. Tiffany Von,
looking forward to seeing her.
she'll be here in a couple minutes.
Probably here, yeah.
She'll be here in a couple.
She's probably knocking at the door.
Maybe, yeah. But I forgot where it was going. But
Looking back, 4 or 5.
I think looking back, I think that we're gonna see us as a time for a lot of growth and a time for really seizing the opportunity. Right? I don't think any of this would have happened without a bold step forward, a good team around me, and good partners.
And this is why I love working with entrepreneurs, because they're taking that leap. I don't call it leap of faith because it's more than that. It's confidence. It's built in their success usually before. There's usually some
Discipline.
It's discipline.
It's a lot of people are motivated. A lot of people have talents, but after a little bit of time, motivation goes away. What happens is the discipline to get up and do it.
Well, you're gonna
there are days where I wake up and I'm like, I could take the day off, man. I've been doing this, I've been doing that, I'm balancing this. I got to talk to Nick about one thing and Tim about the other. Just like, I'm just gonna hide today. But you have to have the discipline to get up, go to the gym, go do what you got to do, pick up that phone. My secret, and again, we kind of ended this already, but I'll say one more thing. My secret has always been trying to start my day with something difficult and then moving into something that's very easy. So it might be my 1 mile run in the morning. I'm trying to get that time down.
Yeah.
It might be going to the gym and lifting. It might be shadow boxing. It might be working the bag. Do something that's very difficult. And I move into something that's super enjoyable with positive feedback. Call my mom, talk to her on the way in. I call you in the mornings. I know you make fun of me, but it's a good positive conversation with a strong, it's a good influence in my life.
Yeah.
I call you in the morning. So I always, instead of listening to sports radio, I try to have that positive phone call after my moment of difficulty. And for me, it gets me in that spot where it's go get the day, because it's not going to wait for you. That's all I got. You got anything, Nick? You got anything?
Nope.
Can we wrap
This
it?
is awesome.
We're done?